Hey everyone, and welcome to the Pep Talk. I am here today at Assiniboine Park, beautiful Assiniboine Park, and I'm here with a dear, good, beautiful friend, Katie. We have been friends forever, and I wanted to bring her in today because she's female, strong female, entrepreneur, mom. She's doing it all, and I want to know how she's doing it. So Katie, welcome.
Hi.
Can you please let everyone know kind of who you are, what business you run, your everyday?
Okay, should I look here or here?
You can look right there.
Okay. So it's sort of, I do have to say though, it's sort of neat to see you in your professional life because as Steph said, we've known each other forever, so it's really cool to see that. So I'm Caitlin, Katie, as Steph said, and I am a mom of two wonderful little angels / gremlins, depending on the minute, Scarlett and Finn. I'm a speech pathologist and I have a private practice, and I work with the most amazing, wonderful group of women in that group. We just happen to all be women. We would love to hire a male speech pathologist, but not as common a job for a guy. So yeah, that's sort of me. And oh, and I have a wonderful husband named Andrew who sometimes gets left out of that description, but he's an integral part of everything.
Who was your inspiration that made you feel like you could run your own business, have a bunch of kids, do it all, be a female that could do it all, you know?
Right, yes, lean in. Well, first I will say that I don't do it all. Like if you saw my house, not the tidiest at the moment. Dishes still in the sink. So I will say that, but who inspires me? Well, I mean, I suppose lots of people, but I would say, I mean, certainly watching my parents growing up. My dad is an entrepreneur. He started his own business in the 3rd floor of our house. Coach Brooks, as Steph knows. And I've never seen someone work so hard in my entire life. And that meant something to me, I suppose. And yeah, it taught me the value of hard work and doing something you love and being your own boss.
Her dad, it's so nice when you have like those people in your life that really, really believe in you. And I joke with him all the time that there's a part of me that really thinks I wouldn't have gone a scholarship to university. I wouldn't have done a lot of the things in my life had her dad not been in my life, which is just crazy to think. So that's kind of how we know each other.
That's a really special thing to say. I'm feeling emotional. My mom, of course, I'm sure everybody comes on here and says their mom, but my mom is the best. And again, she had 4 kids. I have 2, and I don't know, some days I feel like I'm going to jump up, you know, but my mom had 4, and my dad worked so much. When he wasn't working, he was coaching softball. And my mom worked a full-time job and then somehow was the best mom ever to 4 kids. So I think seeing her do that, and it just never occurred to me that I wouldn't do the same, I guess. Yeah, and maybe it's cliche, but my partner, Andrew, I think it's really important that you find someone who maybe loves you even more than you love yourself. And that was Andrew. And yeah, he really, he was just, yeah, super, super supportive and believed in me and kind of said, why not? You already have the no is an Andrew Buchel quote. So yeah, there you go.
Oh gosh, like look at what you can do, and you're a female. Like you should be so proud of yourself. What is that commentary for you when people are like almost surprised that you're able to run a business?
How do I feel about it? I would say I have a daughter, and I hope that we get to the point where we can drop that part. Because that last half of the sentence, right? Like, oh, it's so great that like you're a boss, a woman boss. I hope we get to the point in our culture and our society where that's not a thing, where it's not an accomplishment. And unfortunately, I think a lot of the systems in our particular society, and I suppose in many, are set up so that it can be harder. I have to say that actually for me, I don't think it really impacted my ability to be successful in my career. But I think for lots of women, that is there. So I suppose, you know, for some women, I think that is probably a huge part of the accomplishment, is kind of overcoming some of that systemic sexism and But for me, I actually can't really take that credit. So, yeah.
What I think is interesting, though, is we were chatting a little, we were walking around here, and we were talking about that there's certain fields that it's like a bit of a boys' club. And I had the same chat, though, with Rebecca. Rebecca, she owns an acupuncture, and she said for acupuncture, she felt very accepted as a female. And perhaps maybe with speech pathology, there's a bit more of an open-armed welcomeness to it. But when we were talking about like sometimes fields like sales, IT, operations, there is a bit more of a boys' club sense, and it might feel a bit harder to break into those fields. So maybe that's also where you're like, I can't take credit for it. Although I think you should still take credit for it.
Yeah.
But maybe that's why.
I would say if anything, in speech pathology, there's an old girls' club. And so I think there are challenges to that in a different kind of way. And I think part of what I was telling you earlier, I didn't really know about your website, and I was checking it out, and something that I loved was this idea of women lifting other women up. Because I think in a really female-dominated profession, perhaps you're not fighting as much that kind of the misogyny, but you can end up losing sight of that, of women lifting each other up. And I think that is just so critical, and it is so meaningful to me. And when I saw that, it just made me think like, hell yeah! It reminded me of you, because that is who you are.
I would love to hear your perspective on how you at least at times can keep a balance, and how you do it all as a parent of two with a business.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would, as I said earlier, I mean, I think there, for me, needs to be an acceptance that I can't do it all. And in fact, that's okay. I think, and it's okay to choose things that are meaningful to you and let some of those other things go. And I think for a long time, I felt this real guilt about choosing two big things in my life, you know, my family and my work. And I felt this, like that was a bad thing. Like, you know, if you don't have lots of hobbies and all these other things, like then you're a workaholic, and that's unhealthy. And I think I've come to accept that I actually, like, I love my work. I love the women I work with. I'm passionate about what I do, and for me that's actually fulfilling and meaningful, and in some ways in place of some hobbies, which, I mean, I love a hobby, but right now in my life, with my kids the age that they are, the time that I'm not working, I spend with my kids and my family, and, you know, certainly always try to be with friends, but I think the friends that have stuck around in my life are the ones who love me in spite of my inability to go out for drinks multiple times a week, and know that if I disappear or don't reply to a text message, that I still love them and they mean something to me, but I just, you know, my kid just both pooped down my shirt and barfed down my back, and, you know, the other one's screaming. So, you know, I think for me, that's how I do it, is I've made choices. And there are times I feel totally out of balance. Yeah.
But what a great thing to say just about like the support of like people in your life that just give you a break, and vice versa. Like that, if you're the person that feels like you need a break, or you make sure that you're giving other people a break. Make sure that you're also like not pissed off because they haven't sent your text back in the last 3 hours, or like all those things, like giving each other a break, because you never know what someone's going through. And kids or no kids, like just giving each other a bit of a break. So Katie is a speech pathologist, and just so you all know, Caleb, my second, has a bit of a stutter, and so we were chatting about it. And I don't know if anyone else deals with this, but I don't know anything about this, and I felt like I was really out of tune with it, out of touch with what I was supposed to do, who I'm supposed to call. Did I break Caleb at some point? Was it the glass of wine that I had? All those things. And so I wanted to see if Katie would share a little bit to parents, if there's concerns, if they have questions, what do they do, or what are the resources?
Yeah, so this is, I mean, first, I think, as with most things as a parent, despite the fact that you feel it is all your fault, it is not your fault. The second thing I would say is parents usually know. You know, sometimes parents call me and they say, well, I don't, you know, someone else said that I'm probably being silly, but I just think there's just something, it just doesn't feel right. And I would say trust your gut, because as parents, you know your kid. And so if there is something that feels like it's just not quite right, ask, you know. So I would say that for sure. The other thing to know is there are actually public free resources you're paying for them in your taxes, so that you can access. So I run a private practice, but there are free resources that you can access through, depending on your kiddo's age, through either the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority or whichever health authority you're in. So, you know, Interlake, Eastern, or Southern, as well as once your child is school age, through the school. And often parents can get disconnected because the school services, well, especially now with coronavirus, but parents aren't often able to see those clinical services, so they don't know they're there. But ask. And then there are private resources available as well. And, you know, I think something that's really important to think about is there are also some, you know, let's be honest, everybody struggles, and during COVID, it's magnified those struggles, and I think it's marginalized communities even more. But there are resources available, things, funding sources that you can access, and creative solutions that can be found. So if you're motivated, I would say reach out to some of those resources, and because they are there. It's just, as with many things in healthcare, it's really hard to navigate it on your own.
Yeah.
Call, and if I don't know who, if I don't know someone or myself who can help, I usually know someone who can. Mm-hmm. And because I always say to people, if it was my son, if it was my sister, if it was my parent, I would want to feel confident knowing that person, I would want to have, you know, them say, hey, I'd have them treat my kid, so I'll treat your kid. And so I think I don't always know the answer, but if I don't, I work very hard to find out.
I want to thank Katie so much. And during this talk right now, it just kind of dawned on me when she's talking about like relationships and friendships, that Katie is the person in my life that when I lived in the US, I'd come back a couple years over, and it was like no time had passed. And then like a couple years later again, it's like we see each other, we maybe one kid's around, but like no time has passed. And then again, and no time has passed. And those are the friends, like we were saying, that you know that you could rely on, and that love you regardless of how many dinner parties and how many outings and how many drinks. And not that those things aren't good, but I would say have a few more Katies in your life.
The feeling is mutual. Never judged me once for a lack of text reply, or
no,
you're the kind of person, that's the kind of person you want.
That's because now I know I'm safe. I'm like, you can't be mad at me because you didn't reply to me your text, so I can't be mad at you. But thank you so much for being here. And that's gonna go in the outtakes. Your teeth?
Yeah.
Do you have something?
And Stephanie Kababi is the best.
I'm gonna cut that out of the video. Or I'm not.